Roz. And that's what I did, and it just came flowing out of me. I didn't have to study or look anything up. And what came out, what flowed out of me was no regrets. I'm waiting for everybody to pay their respects. No regrets was what came out. And I said, dear Roz, I have no regrets about our relationship. Thanks to your courage, to your forgiveness, for your generosity, for your love, and most of all, for your sense of humor. And the three of us, the three sisters, and I'm the oldest sister of three. The youngest sister died before Roz did, I think 2 or 3 years before, from cancer. So I am sisterless, but I'm not, because sisterhood is not related to your gender. Sisterhood and brotherhood too, for that matter, and cousinhood and all that. We're all, one of the things I wanted to also acknowledge is my own children and one of my grandchildren, and many other what we used to call in-laws, but it's not in-laws, it's in-loves. And they're all here. All my biological children are here. So that brings about another creation of the three sisters, because we three committed to cleaning up our act and stop the fighting that we had. My mother had us 5 years apart because she didn't want us to be competing with each other, especially because we were 3 girls, and I'm the oldest. And we fought like anything. It didn't work. But it did work because we were committed to it working. And we established something called Sisters Weekends. And we ended up being at Judy and Mike's house. And we kicked Mike out for many of our sister weekends. And we went to some beautiful places because we lived so far apart from each other. And what sent the common note is what Ben was describing as his distance, physical distance from his mother. But it didn't affect their relationship. It only affected it in a positive way. So we gathered for Thanksgiving at Judy's house because she was the midpoint between Roz and myself. And we also had many wonderful times together in all of those 3 locations. So I think that's about all I have to say, unless I forgot something, and you can remind me of something that I said to you that I wanted to share with you. But the thing that was the most, now I remember. Just before she died, we had a conversation on the phone in which we acknowledged each other, and it was so sweet, it was so loving. And she said to me, I'm not experiencing pain anymore. And she said some very sweet things to me, and it was like a love conversation, which was kind of new for us, because we were not, I can't say we were fighting really, but this was like 100% pure and clean and complete. So though that doesn't mean I'm not sad and very, very sad that she passed, and feeling lonely because of missing our conversations, but it's clean, it's complete. And so I can even enjoy laughing about some of the things we did. And I sense that everybody that knew her had a similar experience. So all children were our children, are our children. And she's the one that introduced me to activism for environmental sustainability and social justice and spiritual fulfillment. And I didn't even know about Joanna Macy and some other famous people. They're famous now, but they weren't long ago. Because this was early like 20 years ago, when she was, maybe longer ago than that. She was always committed to these ideals, which are becoming real now because of her participation and her leadership. She was a great leader. And I think you probably all know that from your relationship with her. Anything else you want me to tell you? No? Okay. All right, well, thank you very much for coming and being here in your fullness. And I know we share our gratitude for having been one of her, or two of her. All of us share that we had a relationship with her that was so deep, no matter when it started and no matter when it ended, because it has not ended. It continues. It's made me clearer than ever that she lives on through us. Thank you.
I had a really hard time figuring out what to talk about here today. What I can tell you about my mom that you don't already know. What I can bring to your understanding of her or sense of who she was. I think that everybody in this room already knows about her warmth, about her wisdom, her wit. I think all of us have laughed at her jokes. and eaten her food, and I'm inclined to believe that at least most of the people in this room have had some small or maybe even very large aspect of their lives changed for the better just from having talked to her. By being lucky enough to experience her nearly superhuman insight and wisdom, which grew out of her also nearly superhuman empathy and compassion, her ability to relate to anyone and anything, to find those points of connection with everyone that she met. It feels really pretty trite to say she was a wonderful mother, but of course she was. She was, as Ben talked very beautifully about, she was what you might call a natural mother. She was deeply, maybe even compulsively nurturing, if there is such a thing. And I think many of you in this room have probably experienced being mothered by her in different ways and in different forms. So you know how good it felt to be mothered by her, how completely perfect her mothering could be. There are 4 of us in this room to whom she was literally a mother or stepmother. 5 if you include my husband. She was a mother-in-law to, I don't know if he's in the room right now, but my son. But of the 4 of us, I'm her only daughter. And so I decided to talk a little bit about that today. Sorry. As mother and daughter, she and I were very similar in a lot of ways. Not all, but in many ways we were very similar. And we were really close. We were very deeply connected and very in tune with one another. As a teenager, I really tried to fight this, to deny it and reject it, to fight against her, and to, imagine myself as somebody totally different from her, utterly distinct from this, kind of kooky, crass, doting, and just so embarrassing woman who was my mother. I pushed her away a lot, or when I was thinking about it, I realized I imagined that I was pushing her away, but she didn't really ever go anywhere. I just thought I was pushing her away. When that kind of shroud of teenage angst started to fall away, and I started to grow up and become a woman myself, she was still right there. She had been there the whole time. And somehow, suddenly, she wasn't embarrassing anymore. She was this just really loving, ridiculously smart, and just totally cool woman who I got to hang out with, and who really kind of became my closest friend. Certainly my confidant, advisor, therapist. If you're a kid, you don't have to pay for it. It just comes from But she was also, of course, still my mother, even as an adult. She was a woman who I think put a lot of time and energy and also creativity into figuring out the kind of woman she was and the kind of woman she wanted to be. And she also put all of that into helping me figure out those same things. My mom's own relationship with womanhood, I guess you call it, was complex and complicated. She struggled, like most women do, to feel good enough, thin enough, pretty enough, feminine enough. But she also knew, at a very deep level, I think, just how unnecessary and stupid it is to waste time thinking about things like that, circular, self-defeating thoughts like that. My mom was a feminist, although that wasn't a word she herself used very often. Which isn't to say that she was apologetic or disengaged or silent about her own struggles and triumphs within a sexist culture. My mom felt and struggled against, I think she felt and struggled against sexist rules and assumptions and expectations her entire life. She was determined to be, and knew in her gut that she had the right to be who she was, to live the life that she wanted to follow her own instincts, to pursue what interested her and excited her, to walk and talk and think authentically, to just be fully, authentically herself. She never kind of took me aside and sat me down and said, you are as much of a person as men are, you are worthy. Instead, she and my father, raised me in such a way that it just never would have occurred to me to think otherwise. She didn't sit me down and explain that I'm not an object and I shouldn't let people objectify me. She just raised me to know in my gut, like she did, that I'm a human being. I'm not an object. I'm a thinking, feeling, acting subject. And I think of all the things that she was, and all of the things that she modeled, and therefore that she gave me and passed on to me. This is probably the greatest gift of all of those things. That confidence and humility and self-knowledge to trust my own instincts and perceptions and judgments. So in the end, what she really taught me about womanhood or about being a woman was really ultimately about personhood, about being a person. Autonomy, integrity, self-worth, self-recognition. And I don't really have any doubt that each of you in this room have also gotten some of that from her too, in different ways. Really, I think that's why it was so easy, almost sometimes eerily easy, to open up to her, to find yourself, sharing intimate details of your life with her, to share with her all your vulnerabilities and your weaknesses. That's because to know her, to know my mom, to have Roz, to know her, to love her, even just to talk to her for a few minutes was to be seen, was to be heard. To have your own full, complete, flawed self be taken in by her and embraced, affirmed, recognized, seen. How profoundly empowering is that? What an incredible legacy to have given this gift to so many people. And that's what I have to say today.
The one thing I could do now is just cry for about an hour. I've never had a problem with crying. suppose I didn't have parents that said, don't cry. Or maybe I just figured it out myself that crying was a good thing. Crying is what you really feel. And it's not words. You can't really put it into words. It's just there. And it's not really pain either. It doesn't seem to me like it's pain, even though it also feels like pain. Anyway, as I said a while ago, I have done nothing in this month except just go on living the life that I was living. It was as though Roz was on vacation somewhere, and I was taking care of the house, as I always do. And it felt very comforting to do that. It was a kind of mourning. I didn't do anything else. I left the house exactly as it was. It's kind of like a museum too. I didn't want to move anything yet, and I still don't. And what occupied me this whole month was this. What was I going to do here? What was expected of me? Was anything expected of me? Should I speak? What would I say? And I ran through a lot of different scenarios of things I could do, but they would fade out. And I just couldn't figure it out. I decided pretty early I would not try to write a speech. I would wait till today and see where I was at. So this is it. And I've already run into so many of you just before we started that Dayenu, it's enough. I can go home just having seen so many of you from totally different parts of my life. Then, 2 days ago, something happened to me. I think I was having a cup of coffee sitting on the couch. I was thinking, well, this is the end. After this ceremony, that's it. I mean, I don't want to forget her or anything, but officially, that's the end of Roz. And I thought, I didn't know what to do. I thought, maybe I should try talking to her. So I did. I didn't get too far. I got this far. I said, and it was just as though she was there. She was there for me. I said, of course I miss you. How could I not miss you? But it's really not that you're not with me, that is so difficult for me. What's so difficult is not that you're not here with me, but that you're nowhere. You're gone, totally. And suddenly I got this, almost like a vision in a movie. It reminded me of these custom dramas like Downton Abbey. People arrive and leave in, with horse and carriage, and they ride out along, people are waving, and I suddenly found myself waving goodbye to Roz. And I was saying, the years with Roz have ended. And I was suddenly just devastated. I can't explain it. It just felt like I really suddenly felt what's involved in losing Roz. I had gone blissfully on, just doing my chores, being a good soldier, taking care of all this. Right after somebody dies, you're a total wreck, but you have to deal with all this stuff, funeral, the accounts that have to be changed, death certificates, and talking to lawyers and funeral home people, and all the time, I don't want to do this. And then after a while I began to think, well, maybe it's good to be reminded that the whole world hasn't disappeared, that everything else goes on, and I too have to go on because there's some bills that need to be paid, and the kitty box needs to be emptied, and my life goes on. But suddenly I had this feeling of it just terrorized me. To think of her moving on. Actually, I'm the one that's moving on. She's not coming with me. And I just cried for a long time. Everybody took care of me. It didn't bother me. Just wept and wept and wept. And then it began to change. And a different thought, a different part of me, I guess, plugged in and said, well, now, wait a minute. He's not going to write out your life like that. He's not going to leave your life at all. Well, yeah, I realize he's not alive. But we were very close. Very, very, very close. And I just want to kind of quickly fill in the history here. I met Roz in the following way. My brother, who was a professor of philosophy, I was one too here at Oakland University. My brother was in Illinois. And he was telling me that this was during a period when the colleges and universities were all looking for